You seem hungry. Good thing your table is ready with Saturday Omaha.
Saturday Omaha.
Eat this.
Hey, this is Dave with Saturday Omaha, and we are sitting in studio, and we are going to talk to a guest that you may remember from a prior episode when we had talked to him about Dire Lion, and he has some new ventures, but if you go back and listen to our Dire Lion episode, you'll know that my guest has some chef cred, a lot of food truck cred, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But Isaiah Renner, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for the air conditioning in the studio. It's hot out there.
Oh my goodness, nice change of pace. And so off mic a little bit ago, we were just kind of talking, and you had said this last Saturday, of course, was quite toasty, and you had put something on the menu that required a steam well. So you had your own sauna in your food truck.
Well, yes, and I decided to cook pasta at the same time, so I just really cranked up the humidity. I don't know why I do this to myself, but
I think the life of a chef is challenging both physically, mentally, and everything else. And then you add the food truck component of weather, small spaces, and everything. So you have to be very, very versatile to handle that, I think.
Yeah, but it's all right. I could shed a few pounds, so we're working on that summer beach bod now. So.
Perfect. Well,
I'll be ready by the fall.
Well, and there was a dad bod contest recently at Trucks and Taps.
Saturday.
Do we have a definitive winner there?
I don't know. I was busy on the truck. I didn't get to watch it, unfortunately. But there was a first, second, and third place.
Excellent.
So we had a good enough turnout to have a first, second, and third place. So I was happy about that.
That's awesome.
The weather was kind of funky and scary. Yeah. There were some pop-up storms, so we were happy to get that in. But we had a band that we had to cancel, so that was a little sad. But people still showed up for the contest. They seemed. I saw a lot of cheesy, dad saying shirts in the crowd, so that was perfect. I was happy about that.
Since you and I talked last, because it's been quite a while, you're also a dad now too. So
I am. Yes.
I think when we were talking, it might have been right before your son was born?
I believe I even had said something like, "Hey, if I've got to leave in the middle of this, this is why."
Yes.
So, it was about a week, I would say, before we were due. So, yeah.
So since you and I have talked on mic last, obviously we've seen each other at the Trucks and Taps, which is where you're usually housed at. You not only have a new kiddo, but a new truck since last we talked called Crunch Factor.
Yeah, old and new. So it's the same truck that we ran the Dire Lion out of. I spent the better part of the winter and spring tearing everything out of there and replacing equipment and a lot of cleaning and repainting. And it used to be a red truck. Now it's a black truck.
Yes.
One of our former employees stopped by and he said, "I see you're going through your emo phase now."
So let's close the book on Dire Lion a little bit. So tell how long was Dire Lion running, and maybe what led you to, hey, let's try something different?
Yeah, man. It's a longer story than I guess I ever thought it would be.
Yeah.
So 7 years we ran it.
Wow.
So we would have been going into 8 years this year. I started it with my friend Dakota. Well, I don't know what year, 2016, I guess that would be, right? And we ran that for, a year and a half or so, and I had some other people come on that had worked with me previously and kind of help build it up from there. And then fast forward a little bit, Scott, who was with me last time, he came on and kind of really partnered with me, and we took it, even further. So I think he was with Dire Lion for about 3 years.
Nice.
When we started Dire Lion, like I said, I didn't even really expect it to go. Like I didn't expect people to really take to it as they did. Like they enjoyed it. And, so we just ran with it. And, I guess Dire Lion for me in the beginning, that was kind of a challenge for me. The challenge was, how do I make British food that the American palate can enjoy, but also we had a lot of, British regulars that would come up, and they also enjoyed it. So It was kind of walking that line and not making it true to the cuisine, but also making it user friendly to everyone who came up. And I think we obviously we found it. We did it for 7 years. So
Yeah.
But that's a lot. That's a lot of fish. It was, I did the math, and I'm not a mathematician by any means, but it was literal tons and tons of cod that we had to have fried.
So much cod.
I mean, I'm letting the ocean restock itself now. So.
You, before Dire Lion, let's see, you were at Nosh at one point, right? Or
Yeah. So there was a little bit. Right before Dire Lion, and where I started it, I owned a small cafe in what was formerly the Alorica building off of 72nd and Center.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They've since tore it down, and they put up a building for a center for mental health.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
But I was kind of like the commissary kitchen to the building, and there it was.
Gotcha.
It was open to the public if you knew about it, but I couldn't advertise outside of there.
I see.
But it didn't really matter to me. My intentions really were to start Dire Lion out of there because, as you know, running a food truck, you need to have a commissary space, and
yes.
So that was just kind of my way to do it. So right before that, though, I was down at Nosh, and that's, when Scott worked with me down there. And so, Scott had worked with me for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, that's awesome. And, definitely have enjoyed food from Dire Lion for many years now. The first thing I had there was the bangers and mash on a roll with, the onions and the whole bit, and super, super good. Curry fries, delicious, of course. But like you said, you cooked a lot of fish for 7 years, and you're a chef, and the rotating menu special, I think, allowed you to flex a little bit of that soul of a chef, that heart, that creativity with food. However, you keep it on brand with Dire Lion,
right.
what you're doing there. So let's hear it from you. Tell me about Crunch Factor. What is it? Why did you do it? And what's going on there?
Yeah. So I guess to kind of close the book on Dire Lion. So the middle of probably around this time, actually, maybe a little bit later last year, I messaged Scott probably after we got done one night, and it was probably like, midnight or something. And I'm like, hey, dude, like tomorrow, let's get together because we're going to be off. Let's just meet up at the patio, just sit out there, have a drink, and talk shop a little bit.
Yeah.
And my intentions were, to say, hey, I'm a little tired of, the repetitive batter the fish, fry the fish, batter the fish, fry the fish,
Yeah.
As good as it was, and man, I know we had so many people who were so sad to see it go, and even now, every weekend we get at least one person who's like, hey, you guys ever gonna do Dire Lion again, and the good thing is like I have the menus and I have the ability, and we'll bring it back. We've brought it back once this year already,
right?
Not going to do it a ton, but yeah, we will. So we talked a little bit about that, and some days went past, and we kind of went into the next week like normal, and I was like, this is kind of strange. I talked to him. I was kind of pouring out my heart, like, hey, dude, I really don't know if I can do this, and he kind of gave me a weird response of like, I'm kind of okay with the routine,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. And then like probably a week later, he was like, oh, I was talking to somebody else, because you talk to everybody in the kitchen there.
Sure.
And he said he was talking to somebody else, and he was like, oh, you were serious about that. And I was like, yeah. From there, we kind of tried a little bit. We tried to do some more specials and change some things. But, like you you still get kind of boxed into that brand and that style of cuisine. You know, I can't be putting buffalo chicken, fish and chips on. That's just not going to go, right? So,
Yeah, ramen.
I don't know. Maybe we could try it. Some of you might like it. Who knows?
Sure.
But Scott has been in the industry probably 15 more years than I had.
Oh wow! So he decade and a half.
He's been around, and I think that he was maybe feeling like, okay, I might need to do something different, and this industry wears down on you, and
it's hard,
and the labor, and
on your feet all the time. And
so I think it was kind of he came to me one day and said, I got to move on, and yeah, he seems, I saw him actually Saturday at the event. He's been working sometimes with Zach off of Burning Bridges. He's been helping on their truck every once in a while. So, he gets into it a little bit.
Right.
And, I've been hesitant to ask him to come, work on my truck. I'm not going to do that to you, give you a little time. But it worked out for the best for everyone, really. I get to kind of keep going and try a few new things, and yeah, so I think that's kind of how Crunch Factor came about.
The Dire Lion name, I believe, came from a D&D session at one point. Was there also a pub called Crunch Factor in a D&D game?
No. So, yeah, kind of an interesting story with that as well. I mean, I don't know. It may not be interesting at all to anyone, but growing up, my friends and my brother, I've always had kind of like a relationship with food that's like probably when we were younger, an unhealthy relationship, a lot of fast food and stuff like that. But we always had this kind of this idea that a meal just really wasn't complete if it didn't have like a little crunchy aspect to it.
I like it. Yeah, a little texture. Yeah.
And so if it's like just like some tortilla chips on the side, or whatever you would consider that. And I just thought it had a good ring to it and perfect for a food truck. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of took that, and I think I'm putting a little bit more of a twist on it. Not everything I have has a pile of potato chips on top of it, but some of it does. Sure. But I think I kind of take it more as like that kind of unique, sort of thing, that it factor, that adds to a meal. And that's how I really try to attack these menus when I do them. I would prefer, if I'm going to give myself the opportunity to do some new creative things, I want them to be as creative as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And so, I want to try and do something that really hasn't been seen before. And, sometimes there are things, everything's been done, right? But,
sure.
But, I'd like to do things off of a food truck that haven't been done off of a food truck. And hopefully people enjoy it. Hopefully me putting like a crazy hot dog on the menu or whatever, is up people's alley. And so far seems to be going well.
So let's see, how many months? So you refinished the truck metamorphosized it into the Crunch Factor truck over the winter. So roughly 6 months ish. Mm-hmm. So for those that haven't had Crunch Factor before, what are some of the menus that you kind of started out with? And it's ever changing, but what are some of the types of things that you've run so far? Right.
Yeah. And so a lot of the menus too are very like specifically themed around one sort of food.
Yeah.
So like we've done like a noodle menu. I did one that was all kind of like taquitos, but a more gourmet style taquito. That was one that I think a lot of people really liked. One that was sandwiches, just like crazy sandwiches I came up with. The last weekend we did kind of a barbecue theme thing. I was thinking for like Father's Day and stuff like that. So it's whatever comes to mind for me. I've got to work on it this evening, but I have to write a menu for this week and get that done. And so it's kind of a quick turnaround. every week, and I'm keeping up with it so far. So,
Nice. So this really interests me because, one of those things where, I know probably everybody listening to this have certainly had the, hey, where do you want to eat? Where do you want to go? And that's always a popular, discussion. But from your aspect as a chef, when you are coming up with these menus, because you're doing a new menu, is it a new menu every week or every other? Or?
For the most part, we've done some that we've repeated into the next week, and that's just if we feel that it's going really well.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Give people the chance to come out and try it, because it's hard to. It's easy to do the menu. You already have the prep there,
right.
For that next week. But if I were to do do one menu and then do another and then go back to another one, that would be, that'd be difficult. But I guess not as difficult as just writing a new menu every week. I don't know. I make things as difficult as I can for myself.
So I have never written a full menu, and it's hard enough for me to go, what am I cooking tonight? And I need to side with that. I often, for me, unfortunately or whatever, I always laser in on the protein. It's like, okay, I'm going to do a steak, I'm going to do burgers, I'm going to do, potato chip crusted chicken. And then it's like, oh yeah, we really should have other stuff with this. So as a chef, how do you put these menus together? What's your process of ideation, or do you just sit there and brainstorm, or how do you take that and turn it into reality?
It's sometimes I start that way. Sometimes I think about what a protein or that. I think that's what helps, is thinking first of all about what's keeping that theme. So like I said, there was like a noodle. All noodle menu that we did. And I was like, okay, well, what kind of pasta dishes do I like? And then you start thinking about pasta dishes, and you're like, well, it's not just all Italian food. You have Asian food, and you can go from there.
Right. Contains noodle then.
Yeah. And for me, then I start to I decide on a dish that I want to make.
Yeah.
And then I decide, okay, this is how you see this dish made. How can I make it differently?
Oh,
how can I put my stamp on it, or how would I like it to be?
Right.
And sometimes how I like it to be might not be how everyone else does, and hopefully they do. But at least I'm putting it out there and letting people try.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to get into the secret sauce too much, but so you create this. So like tonight, you're talking to me, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to do so.
Oh, I appreciate you having me. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And so you're going to go home and you're going to put this menu together. Do you have time to cook and taste all that stuff ahead of time, or are you at I think there's a point for a player of an instrument, or maybe even a programmer that types a lot, where or in your case maybe the kitchen, where the ingredients and the knife just are naturally an extension of you and making things happen. So maybe you don't need to think. But do you get a chance to R&D stuff, or is it just like we're gonna go for it?
Yeah, no, not really. And this is like, my wife is always like, so wait, so you didn't even really try it? I'm like, well, I taste as I go along.
Of course.
But the full thing, no.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's crazy. What do you mean? What do you mean? Like,
yeah.
So we don't usually get time to R&D really.
Sure.
The other thing I did, when I started Crunch Factor, going from Dire Lion was like full time.
Yeah.
And starting Crunch Factor, another factor in deciding to do it was giving myself a little more time, a little more family time, because it's a lot. And, I'm doing trucks and taps, and so, now Crunch Factor will run about 2 times a week. Normally on the weekends we're open.
Okay.
And so the beginning of the week is prep, and get ready for Friday, Saturday. And so it's me. I'm doing all the prep, and then my brother works on the truck with me now.
Is that Micah?
Micah, yep.
Yeah.
And he'll come in on Friday, and I'll send him the menu ahead of time so he can read it. but he'll come in and we'll do it, and I think I'm adjusting things a little bit on the fly.
Okay.
A lot of times there, usually there'll be 3 or 4 dishes, maybe 5, and probably like 3 out of the 5, I'm pretty solid on. I know exactly how I want it to go out, want it to look, want it to taste.
Yeah.
Then there's a couple that I'm like, I'm not sure, let's mess with it a little bit. So 1 or 2 might go out, and I'm like, I want to change something on it. So I tweak that quickly. But so it's kind of like it evolves over the weekend. I kind of fine tune it. And I enjoy that. And I'm not saying I want people to get all the same experience, but
sure.
They're always getting our best. They're just getting our best at the time.
That makes sense. Well, and you tasting as you go and listening to feedback and things like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then so you put the recipes together and whatnot, and then with the former food truck, hey, I need to go out and buy beer, I need to go out and buy fish, and I need to buy fries. Now, every week you're like, oh shoot, I need to buy 7 different types of noodles or whatever.
Yes.
So how is the shopping changed, or like how do you handle the inconsistency of shopping now?
Yeah. That is challenging. What even makes it more challenging is like I'll write a menu and I'll put something crazy on there. I'm like, oh, I want to use this ingredient, and I go out and look for it. I'm like, oh, I can't find that.
Oh no,
anywhere. You know. Amazon has bailed me out a lot of times, but
nice.
But you learn, and like a lot of times too, like I'll put something crazy on there, and then like kind of as I'm doing the prep throughout the week before I print the menu, I'm like, okay, I got to change this ingredient because I can't find it, or whatever. So we swap it out, What also helps me with coming up with things too is like I might have an idea for a menu, but I know that I have product that I need to kind of rotate and use, and that just kind of helps you work it in and go from there.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
A little added stress level, and just like, okay, make this, but maybe some excitement too, and
somewhat,
just bringing those things to life.
I don't know if I don't feel stressed about it. I don't know. I feel for me, I just need to be creative. That's it was kind of funny. I was talking with another former employee of mine that was at Nosh. She did, I believe, an internship for maybe half a summer or whatever, and she has recently just opened a bakery in Bellevue.
Oh, fantastic!
And just prior to that, she did a pop-up on my food truck, which is also another thing we can talk about. But
yeah, definitely.
She came in to talk to me about it, how it would work, how we, thought she would, everything would work. Do I just come onto your truck and serve stuff? I'm like, yeah, pretty much. You know what you're doing,
Yeah.
So we spent about 2 minutes talking about that, and then about, half an hour catching up on everything she'd been doing and
Nice.
I'd been doing. And obviously, hey, I've changed over the truck. This is a new thing, blah, blah, blah. Why did that happen? And she had said, I was so surprised when I read your post that you had been doing that for 7 years because you were the most creative person that I know. How did you do fish and chips for 7 years?
Yeah.
And I said, I know, but I think you get. It was somewhat of not. I didn't want to let people down. People enjoyed it.
Oh,
you know, and I so you do get kind of stuck. You don't want to let people down.
Of
you
course.
want to bring things that people enjoy and like, but at a certain point you have to do that for yourself too. So
yeah. Well, I mean, at service and hospitality industry, to see that smile on somebody's face when they eat that dish and, they smile back at you. But, that in tandem, now you can do that with new things and surprise everyone weekly going, what's going to come out of the truck this time, and putting your expertise. And the love and energy that you're putting into that food is consistent, because now it's like, oh yes, I still have this palette of paints, but I'm going to paint a little bit of a different picture.
Yeah. I have, the one thing I just kept telling myself, like, hey, nobody's going to enjoy it if I'm not,
Yes.
it won't happen.
Yeah.
So, at the point that I just got sick of doing it and it just became a factory, just a monotonous thing.
Yeah.
You clock in, punch out,
Sure.
I just couldn't do it anymore. And I didn't feel like I was doing any justice to anyone else. If I bring the Dire Lion menu back, which we will, I'll probably tweak it a little bit too.
Sure.
I'll probably put some things on there that we had, in the books forever and we just never did it because you're trying to run a business and stuff as well. Is it as profitable?
Of course.
All those things, right?
Speaking of profitable or cost-centric and things like that, so you develop your menu. Now it's like, okay, now I've got to source these ingredients. It's I can't get it in town, so my usual shop is out of things. I need to hit Amazon, etc. But what is the process of costing out a menu? We had Chef Davis on the show a while back, kind of talking about that.
But he was one of my instructors.
Oh,
yeah.
fantastic!
Yeah.
Okay,
I know James.
so from your perspective, how do you go about costing things out, or what's your process there on making that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot harder now because obviously. First of all, the timeline, and you don't know how much anything's going to be when you go. I have a basic idea.
Sure.
You've been doing it forever, and I, especially now, I'm in Restaurant Depot every other day, and they're like, "Hey, you again? Yeah,
frequent flyer miles.
How's it going? Yeah, where's
my
my punch card?
Right."
But before I was kind of shooting for 25-30% food cost on the truck, and keeping that food cost as low as I possibly could. And for me, it's about that, but it's also about perception of value.
Sure. That
you're giving the customer. So you try to get your food costs where you want it to be, but also, I need to make that hamburger and fries look like it's worth the $15 that I'm charging, or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
But now with the fact that the truck is so old, I don't owe anything on it or anything. And I've got, one very part-time employee.
Sure.
I'm not so concerned about that anymore.
Gotcha.
So that's great because it allows me to be as creative as I can. So without getting into a bunch of math, which we've already established I don't know how to do. I'll leave that to my wife. Yeah, I don't want to bore you.
That's fair. That's fair. It's just that process to me is always so interesting. As a home cook, and it's like, okay, this is what I bought. This is going to make. But from a business restaurant perspective, it's like, okay, I got to lay out this menu. I've got to make sure that I can cook all these things for 8 hours a day or however long you're open for the weekend. And do I have enough stuff? And boy, I hope I don't have to run to Restaurant Depot in the middle of service because I ran out of X or whatever. There's a lot of logistics in there that maybe folks don't always realize when they get that plate of food,
Yeah, and I think like I'm very comfortable with it after everything that I've done. Going from basically fine dining and into catering, and then having a diner and then a food truck. I had to cost and all of those are all actually very different food costs that you're trying to hit.
Sure.
It's very in fine dining. You have a little more to play with there.
Right.
And so really when I look at it, it's more about looking at your environment and then your, like I said, that perception of value going out.
Absolutely.
So when you go up to a food truck, you're like, man, you really don't want to see anything that's like $20, unless you're like a barbecue food truck or something like that,
Sure.
but also you can't price yourself so low and out of business,
Right.
So,
Oh yeah, you got to keep the lights on and things like the dishware and
right. But anymore, I unless I'm getting like some super expensive protein in or something, I kind of know where everything needs to land.
So that experience is paying off and helping the new thing.
I think so. Good. I don't know, or maybe.
I guess we have to ask your wife because she's the one that's handling the math, right?
Yeah. So, she'd probably look at it and go, "What are you doing?" I don't.
Well, you had mentioned environment. Did you have to change equipment out in the food truck to make it work for what you wanted to do with Crunch Factor? Because something like noodles. You weren't doing noodles on the prior.
Right.
You were doing much more frying.
Right.
So did you have to switch up your gear in there?
Yeah. So it probably only took me a couple of months really to renovate it all, but to think about how I wanted to lay it out when it was going back in, that took me a while because I was trying to make it so I could go in and ultimately do anything on there.
Nice.
Also keeping in mind that I had the intention to let other people do pop-ups off of that truck. So I needed it to be very versatile. Mm-hmm. I had, kind of a standard line kit in there before when we were doing Dire Lion. So we kept some of it the same. I still have 2 fryers in there. I have a flat top. I have a range.
Yeah.
And those are all things that people will always need.
Sure.
But I pulled a couple things out and added a table that could add small equipment if you needed it. So,
cool.
For instance, the noodle concept, I have an electric noodle cooker that I can place on that table and then use it for that concept, but it can be swapped out. It's not like a permanent thing.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I did was we used to have kind of a worktop cooler for Dire Lion, and I switched that to more of like a deli prep cooler so I could have more space for prepped items and stuff like that. And the interesting thing is the one time that we did Dire Lion on the new truck setup, it actually doesn't work well for Dire Lion. That the setup that we had before was very specifically good for Dire Lion. But everything else it's worked very well for.
That's funny.
And so, yeah.
That's awesome. I like that kind of almost like you've got some like Lego blocks. It's like, okay, I want to build this week. So the electric noodle cooker's coming in where XYZ thing might be going out to make room for it. You know, that's really cool.
And then it's a lot of measuring and a lot of inches and involved, because you have 4 walls that are very small inside of an enclosed trailer and you can't expand it. So you've got to, decide, is a 24-inch griddle going to be enough for the volume of something I might potentially do? Or do I need something larger? And if I do something larger, then what can I size down because I only have so much space going one way?
So much happens in that small space,
right? And
over the course of service and those things. So my goodness,
and then you want to be efficient. You know, that's I think incredibly important for a food truck. Have you watched the Bear? Have you been watching that show at all? I
have not, and I have been told that I should, and so I hear another vote for I definitely should. Then
you definitely should.
Okay,
it's some of the best TV I've seen in a while, I'd say, and not just because it's relatable, but.
Sure.
And no spoilers or anything, but there's a scene in it where they're opening a kitchen and he's walking and marking tape on the floor and counting steps in between everything. It's just, he's trying to make it as efficient as he possibly can. On a food truck, that's actually really easy because it's very
not a lot of steps.
Very tight, so it's right there anyways.
It's tough to hire your prep cook with a size 14 shoe. Might get hung up in something there. It's so small.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Trip over my own feet.
Right. Oh yeah. No doubt. Well, yeah. And to your point there, when you're working with somebody else on the truck too, I'm assuming that communication is pretty important, or at least knowing where you're standing, et cetera. There.
Right. Yeah. And especially now. how we're doing things. It's funny because my brother, I think we were all out to dinner for a birthday or something. We were talking about it, and he said, if I had not worked with you for at least I think he worked like 2 years on Dire Lion before.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, we've known each other forever.
Sure.
You kind of have to know what the other person's going to be doing and what they're thinking. Mm-hmm. He's like, I don't think you'd be able to hire somebody for this position because and he's right, because I'm expecting somebody to come in and like, okay, here's the menu and it's all different from last time and go, like,
here's what we're doing today. Surprise.
Right. Yeah.
Do you ever hear, behind herd, or can you even, there's no behind because you can't squeeze?
I mean, every once in a while we do, but we try to avoid going behind each other. There's just,
you might get stuck
you can make it, but I can't, I'm a little wider now, but that's the dad bod. But
You had mentioned other folks utilizing the truck for their own pop-ups. That's kind of exciting because I think one of those things, there's various steps of, hey, first of all, I'm going to do whatever concept it is, or I'm going to maybe try my cuisine out on the neighbors and see what they think, if it's any good. And then there's like maybe I'll have a pop-up at a farmer's market or with a truck. So, but to invest in a truck and get things going and all that equipment's in there, and we got to have a hand washing sink, and we got to have a commissary, and we got to have a this and this and that. That's providing a neat venue. So kind of tell me about that, and maybe have there been any really interesting pop-ups that have happened through the truck at this point? We're still pretty new in the concept.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, we have had a couple already. One, my friend Bree with Bree's Bakery
Awesome.
out of Bellevue. She came in, and she's already the cheesecakes or cakes or whatever she has are already baked, so she's kind of using it to sell from. But that's great because it's that's a way for somebody to just pop up in one place and it be marketing for them. We also had a guy who. He works for a local mushroom farm.
Okay.
And so he helps them grow the mushrooms and everything. And he's trying to basically educate people on, hey, you can do all of these things with mushrooms, and these are what mushrooms can do for you, and these are all the different types. And so out of that, he's been writing menus and cooking for it, and so he has a concept called House Shroom, and they did a pop-up on there, and we're planning hopefully to do some more. But yeah, he doesn't have a food truck, and he had been doing some stuff with I believe Chef Around the Block.
Sure.
Did some pop-ups with them and stuff. But the food truck, it's a full kitchen on wheels, so and it can go places, it doesn't have to. Obviously, it can stay. I'm parked at Trucks and Taps most of the time, and
right,
it can be there, and that's a great venue for people to just have a captive audience. It gives you so much more than. We could set up a table, and you can kind of bring your food and work off of maybe some small burners or whatever, so it gives them an actual experience from it.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about your two little stoves and like you said, a table where the trailer being larger too, it's an attention grabber. It's like, oh, hey, here we are. So
yeah, I guess, and obviously being involved with Trucks and Taps, we get people every week who come through and say, hey, I'm thinking about starting a food truck. I have an idea for a concept. To which we say, okay, well, how far along are you? Do you have a food truck? Have you written a menu? No, I mean, we're just thinking about it. How does this work? How do you do it? So usually it's kind of a lot of back and forth like that.
Sure.
And I like to be able to say, like, hey, if you'd like to, try it out. Because I would have loved if when I was starting, I could have gone into the environment and saw how it would work, because the first couple of years, everything is so trial and error.
Oh, yeah.
You're just, what are you doing?
Yeah, deer in the headlights type thing.
So many mistakes, So I wanted to, I saw an opportunity for me to be helpful in that way. Anybody out there looking for it, come talk to me. I'd love to have you on there and help guide people in the right direction. Maybe, either ignite the spark or cure them of it,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You might say, hey, this isn't for me. It's 90 degrees and it feels like 120 on here,
Yeah, when you're steaming noodles inside of the hot box there. So yeah.
It's not for everyone. Omaha and food trucks. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, and in our last conversation too, I think we were kind of talking about the adjustments you have to make during service. If you run out of something or something isn't working out right, or the weather is crazy that day, but just to experience that firsthand, but that excitement with and experience through a little bit of a safety net. Of course, that pop-up person is putting their time and money in the ingredients, and maybe a billion people show up and they sell out, which is awesome, but could be stressful if they got a line down the block.
Yeah.
And then there's also maybe people didn't show up. What do we do and how do we change? But even that's valuable on learning what to do next time, without spending, X thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, whatever, on the things that you need. Does that also, so Trucks and Taps has a full kitchen, a huge kitchen, as it is, a converted Sonic. I've been fortunate enough actually to make some dough back there with Brett from Izzy's Pizza Bus. But you have a very nice facility back there. So you have the kitchen on site. And then, of course, the truck itself, either if they're going to be at Trucks and Taps, you have the availability of all the stuff in the truck, or if they're off-site, then they have prepped or done whatever they need to do, and then they can take that with the truck. Does that also help the fledgling pop-up owner a little bit, because you sort of have that structure in place too? Does that benefit them in some way?
Yeah, I mean they definitely have the ability to kind of work under us at that point. Otherwise you would have to go I had this other kitchen that I had to start my food truck out of, and I had to have that in order to operate,
Yeah.
And so this way, people can come in. It's kind of under my umbrella of things, and they can utilize what I have, and then they wouldn't have to accrue those expenses that they would otherwise.
Yeah, and just having you be available too as a consultant or just sage advice or whatever, because you've run a truck for 7 years there and prior experience in many different environments. I mean, that knowledge is worth so much. It's like, hey, here's something that worked for me. Maybe try this, because I see that you're about to step on your own 2 feet or whatever. There, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I am definitely not even close to the best chef in town or anything like that, but I mean, I've learned a few tricks here and there, and I just love to give advice, and if I can help people, that's great. And hey, maybe they're doing something that I see, and I'm like, that's a good idea. Why didn't I think of that? I'm always learning, so
yeah. Oh yeah, never stop learning. Absolutely. Yeah. And what's kind of neat with Crunch Factor is not only has it given you as a chef a blank canvas with a little bit of a structure under the Crunch Factor banner, but you can put those menus together however you want. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, the truck is giving you a canvas to help others be uniquely creative through the pop-ups as well. So the opportunities that these new doors have opened are kind of unlimited, which is really neat. Right. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the idea. And, maybe at some point it even becomes more of a thing where it's just a pop-up truck, and I'm just inviting people to come out and do their thing. And I know plenty of people who work in restaurants and stuff, but they have all their ideas of their own, and maybe they want to come by and try them out for a weekend, run their menu. Yeah. So, it's kind of an open door. That's fantastic. Yeah. Creative, fun, and different from time to time. So obviously you haven't got a chance to go home and plan the menu, because I haven't let you leave yet, because you're still talking to me. But obviously by the time this airs, there's probably going to be a new Crunch Factor menu available. Definitely. any inkling or sparkles that you're going to possibly latch on to this evening when you write a menu?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the current working idea right now is to do kind of like wraps right now. So
Awesome.
I'm thinking like I don't know, like a Korean fried chicken wrap, or
That sounds good.
a banh mi wrap or something like that. So
Okay. All right. I can get down on
I
that.
think I'm going that direction. I just got to write it, and we'll see what comes out.
Oh yeah, a little beef bulgogi and some like daikon radish and carrot and a tortilla or something. I don't know. Like, that sounds pretty
like
decent.
we'll grill them or something. I don't know.
That's a good deal.
I love it.
Perfect. Oh, see, the menu's done already. No. So,
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, hey, no problem. I'm here for you.
I wasn't feeling that.
Let's see. So, Trucks and Taps, obviously open for the summer, and a great venue to try out multiple food trucks all at one time, which is super fun.
We've got some great ones this summer. So
yeah, any sneak peeks on who maybe be showing up? If not, that's okay too. I understand.
Oh no, I mean we have guest trucks. We're working on. The thing about food trucks is they are in such high demand.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million events, and everybody wants a food truck now. And we're another one of the people who wants food trucks to come around. We're fortunate to have 4 that live under our roof there, and fortunate to have some very good ones. Nocturnal Eats is one of our.
Are they a permanent resident?
They're a permanent resident.
Okay.
Yes. And he's just doing some phenomenal stuff.
Awesome.
His stuff is so good, and obviously Zach has been there, and those chicken sandwiches,
Burning Bridges, and a gluten-free chicken sandwich too. I think he has. Yeah, fried chicken.
Yeah.
And it's good.
And then New Orleans Snow. He does those snowballs. So it's don't call them snow cones. They're not snow cones. They're snowballs.
Snowballs. Okay. All right. Noted.
It's a very very New Orleans style dessert.
Yeah.
And they're delicious. He's always coming up with a new flavor, and everybody's just cool. It's just a great environment there.
How fun.
And we recently had a new Thai truck come out last weekend, which was looking really good. So,
yeah.
Natea Thai, I believe is
I haven't tried them. Very cool. Okay.
Yeah, they're brand new.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the cool thing too, I think, about Trucks and Taps itself. Just like I'm doing with Crunch Factor now, it's almost like Trucks and Taps is almost a place we get a lot of newer trucks coming in, and it gives them a place to park and try it out with a little more certainty.
Sure.
That you're gonna do something. So
well, and you've got like power and stuff out there too, so not everybody has to run generators and things, which kind of keeps the audio volume down better for conversation, which is kind of nice too.
Yeah.
So
that was intentional. We actually thought that one through. So
well, and the other thing too is you get so many trucks out there, like you said, with New Orleans Snow or Crunch Factor, Burning Bridges, etc., where Modern Waffle, where you have a different varieties. So earlier on in the conversation, we were like, well, I don't know what to eat. I don't know what to do. Well, if you show up at Trucks and Taps, there's probably going to be 3 or 4 choices all in the same spot, which is
most
kind
of
of
the time.
fun too.
The weekdays are, they're rough sometimes, but the weekends are definitely jamming all the time,
and full bar available, which is nice. And I always enjoy the seasonal lemonades that you guys have, which you can get alcoholic or non-alcoholic, which is a lot of fun. So super cool.
Working on a honey mango.
Ooh.
I was working on that today for our next seasonal flavor. So
that sounds amazing. I would totally have that.
It tasted good.
Is that a vodka based lemonade there with the honey mango?
Well, so we do with our seasonal flavors. We make them separately, so you could like add it to a margarita if you'd like. You can add it to the lemonade if you like. So it can be made non-alcoholic.
Yeah.
So
perfect. Handling everybody's drink needs there.
We try. Yeah.
If people want to find Trucks and Taps, let's start there. Where is Trucks and Taps, Isaiah Renner?
Oh, geez. Well, like physically, we are on 108th and Q, just south of Q. There's like a Taco Bell and a Pinnacle Bank on the corner there, and we're just in from there. So that's where you can find us.
Perfect.
And if you're not sure, just look for like 4 or 5 food trucks parked around, and
You'll
you'll know
see 'em.
you're in the right place. Yep.
So for Crunch Factor being housed at Trucks and Taps, but could be anywhere, where's the best place in the land of the internets to keep an eye on Crunch Factor? And those things?
Our Facebook or Instagram. I try to keep up on there. So Crunch Factor Omaha for both of them, and that's the place. I actually didn't. We shut down our Dire Lion website, and I never made a new website for Crunch Factor.
Oh.
But I don't know. I feel like people just kind of go to the Facebooks and stuff anyways, so.
Yeah, and I've heard that that Omaha is leaning a Facebook town versus others quite often, or Instagram. But definitely, my recommendation is find your restaurants on both, because you never know.
Yeah.
So it's
and Omaha is so great with is on social media, just having all of these food groups that have started, and they're really great about picking up, if I'm doing a interesting menu or Trucks and Taps has something going on. I mean, normally somebody picks it up and shares it, and so people see it, and that's fantastic.
I love it. Yeah, Omaha is definitely a food town, no question. I was watching the James Beard Awards, pulling for our Omaha nominee.
Yeah.
We didn't win, but
man.
But hey, Omaha got red on the award show, so very.
We'll
cool.
get them next time.
Absolutely,
right? Yeah.
we'll just keep. We're scrappy. We'll get there.
They just didn't know.
Right, exactly. They need to come here and eat more.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Well, good deal. Well, Isaiah, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. You still got to go home and work, not on the truck, but planning a menu.
Yeah,
you got
it's
family.
not work. It's fine. Yeah.
And because that heart and that smiles there, maybe it feels a little less like work too when you
a little bit. I'm gonna crash from all the cold brew and licorice I'm on right now. But but I don't know. Well, 12:30 or something tonight, I'll get up and write a menu.
Got it. Come down from the caffeine, take nap, come back up, play with the kiddo, and all those things. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for coming back so that we can continue to follow along with your story. I love the fact that our show has been around long enough that you get to see people change, succeed, and evolve. And,
absolutely.
And you're doing fun stuff.
Yeah.
And I
appreciate you having me. Appreciate you having me for sure. So always fun to talk to you.
Fantastic. Isaiah, thank you so much of Crunch Factor. Go see him out there. You're going to have to check the social to see what the menu brings, because as we've been talking about during this whole show, it may change and probably will change from week to week. So find something interesting, give it a shot. And if you liked it, hey, let him know, let Crunch Factor know, let me know. You can email SaturdayOmaha@gmail.com or message me on social. If you got any place that you want to check out that's neat, different, whatever, I'm always interested in recommendations. Thank you so much for listening out there. And as we say, until we eat again, stay hungry. Bye-bye.
Our show is recorded and produced by Saturday Omaha. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, as well as email SaturdayOmaha@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and stay hungry.
Saturday Omaha.
Eat this.